Crazed Colonel Vermin Katafi poses new terrorist threat to the world. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Joe.
Guys, today we are talking about Metal Gear.
Metal Gear?
Sean, you're a resident Metal Gear expert. Do you want to say anything like to start the show? I feel like I shouldn't be starting this episode.
I wouldn't say that I'm the expert on Metal Gear.
Among
I'd
us,
say
maybe,
probably played it more than the rest of the people in this room.
I have avoided Metal Gear in my life so much, but I'm so adamant about not having anything spoiled for me that I have never I've never looked at anything for Metal Gear
and have it spoiled that way.
It's crazy. Like, I don't know anything other than that. Like, maybe he has a clone or a twin or a younger brother. I don't. That's all I know.
See, Solid Snake is actually a clone of Big Boss, and Big Boss.
That would be crazy. Even more so, what's funny is that I do know all of these like Metal Gear memes though, like that long ladder in Metal Gear 3. Like, I know about
meme.
That is a meme because who is it? Donkey just did a whole thing on that like last year or 2 years ago, and it like became a thing again about like why was that ladder so long, and like
It's called storytelling, Mike.
Okay.
And ambitious design philosophies.
Got it. Well, that ladder would be just like the longest ladder in Death Stranding, right? Like Death Stranding's a game where you can have the ladder be as long as you want it.
As long as you want.
Really, this episode more than Metal Gear is actually about a little guy named Hideo Kojima.
True.
Hideo. I always did Hideo when I was young, so I just thought that. No, it is, but I just think that's funny if like I keep it to my world. I don't want to do any immersion breaking for myself.
Same with your Mario bullshit.
Yeah.
Mario? You say Mario?
I used to be a Mario. I used to be a
Okay.
Mario guy, and then, like, I don't know, enough people started saying Mario, and I was like, it's fine, right? It's not Mario Lopez, so it is Mario Lopez. So, like, I'm cool with it. It's fine.
That was the final straw.
Yeah, that's like the comparison. That's the litmus test.
Anyway.
Anyway, Kojima, you got to have some thoughts on him, too, right?
I very much appreciate Hideo Kojima. I think he's got a lot of great ideas, and he really doesn't know how to tell them to people. But I think it's like one of those misunderstood artist things that's just sort of cute.
Okay, yeah.
I never take any of his stories all that seriously, but he really knows how to. It is entrancing stuff.
This is arguably the fourth important name we've heard in video games so far on this podcast. If I had to argue, first one would be Miyamoto.
Sure.
The second one would be Sakamoto. Actually, you gotta throw Iwata in there. You gotta throw Iwata in there, too.
And there's also, do we count, like, composers and things like that?
Yeah, I guess that's right.
Nobuo.
Yeah, because we already had Nobuo and everything. And so, even William Wright did Raid on Bungling Bay. So, not but definitely one of the bigger echelons.
I mean,
this is like the
it's
auteur
been a while
of
since
the video game genre, right?
It's been a while since we've heard a name that is still relevant.
Yeah, I mean, nobody in this room could even tell me who made Major League Baseball, and that was 4 episodes ago. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Correct.
I have no idea for the record. LJN did it. I remember
That
the
guy.
rainbow.
Yeah, Leonard James Nimoy.
Do you use that to help you like picture things and all? This is going off the rails now.
Did you accidentally stumble on Leonard Nimoy there?
It was accidental.
Anyway, time to talk about Metal Gear, which is like an action stealth game. If you would describe the stealth as such in the game, I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, it's actually like one of the first stealth games ever.
Is. And I mean, it's still very, very rudimentary, but what other games are you supposed to avoid all this stuff? Like most of the action games that we've played, just like kill everybody on the screen, like kill everybody.
That's like going into it knowing it was a stealth game. At the very beginning, I was like still trying to figure out like what is a stealth game on the NES. Like I was trying to figure out like is it going to be like puzzly, like you got to avoid these people by doing this, or is it literally just sneaking around, which is kind of what it is. But it surprised me.
So just to give those not in the know, this is an overhead action adventure stealth game. It revolves around Solid Snake, an operative of the Special Forces unit FOX-HOUND, who and Sean, you tell me afterwards if this is all like still true to the Metal Gear lore or not.
Okay.
But so he's an operative for FOX-HOUND who goes on a solo infiltration mission into the fortified state of Outer Heaven to destroy Metal Gear, a bipedal walking tank capable of launching nuclear missiles from anywhere in the world, as well as rescue a number of fellow agents who have been captured by the enemy.
That is all still canon.
Cool. That's great. And throughout the game, you collect different weapons, key cards,
Boxes.
yeah, cardboard is important. But the only thing you start off with is a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, and that's still like most games start with a pack of cigarettes. I love it.
Can you actually do anything with the cigarettes?
You can actually smoke them.
I tried to. I was expecting to lose a little bit of life or something, but this is back when cigarettes were cool.
No, I thought they were going to come in handy or something like it's like some weird purpose later in the game.
What they should have done is and again we're getting into more complex territory.
Just say it.
In Metal Gear Solid, you could use your cigarettes to show the laser beams that would trip an alarm in like some parts of the game. And there is a part in this game where there are laser beams that could trip alarms. And I thought that would be where it would be used, but it's not.
So let's get into the gameplay. I rather than like walk through this game, I actually would rather talk about like specific categories of the game, and we can just you can go anywhere with your examples. I feel like at this point we've set up what the game is about. You have to free these agents. You have to try and be stealthy, though you can get into hand-to-hand or weapon combat if necessary.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about overall the stealth aspect of this game. Does it actually translate well on an NES title?
No.
I'd say no, but that doesn't mean that you can't like get past it. Like there are things you can be walking right next to an enemy and they don't notice you. Like things like that where it's like, okay, it's hard to make this believable. So, and I thought I was going to hate this game right away when I started playing it. But as I played it, I was like, okay, I can still feel like I'm being stealthy in some scenarios. There's a lot of imagination involved, but the actual stealth aspect doesn't really work.
I'll start off praising the stealth just for a few reasons. You have to get over the jungle where you start because that is almost like it sets up for the game for you that it's going to be very hard to be stealthy. And actually, what is stealth in this game if, like, whenever you just show up to a random place, like, they can spot you automatically, right? It's like, well, then it's really hard to be stealthy. But I really did like that, I didn't mind enemies not noticing you if you were nearby because they did face specific directions.
Right.
And if they faced you, they would be able to detect you. But also, if you were behind another object, they wouldn't be able to detect you. And I thought that was pretty smart for this level of game design, being able to detect whether you're hiding behind something. Later on, you get the cardboard box, and as long as you don't move, nobody knows anything, the better that you're there. But I also thought like some glitches that clearly weren't intended were fun. Like the cameras, you can just go up against the wall.
I don't even think that.
Yeah.
So this game is rife with glitches. Like it is an entirely broken piece of software. But one thing that I did, this is a pretty, I think, good headcanon if it wasn't canon. But I think it's just like if there was if there's a camera on a wall and you are leaning against that wall, it's entirely possible that you're just not in the shot.
You're just below the camera, yeah.
And I agree with that, and that was my logical reasoning for it, too, and I was fine with it. The reason why I know it's a glitch is because in the actual official version that Kojima made on the MSX
it doesn't work.
in Japan, it doesn't work like that.
Okay.
We'll get all into that complicated history later on, but I think it's important to focus on the NES port. But I liked the cameras. The dogs, though, at the beginning of the game, that was like an option where like stealth wasn't even available to you.
I was able to, and maybe it was just because there was only one dog on this specific screen, but I guess what our point is right now is that like the dogs can just detect you automatically if you get close enough. But I was able to, like, if I just moved one square at a time, like not wake one up at least.
I was trying to figure it out because they like very like to a rhythm. They lift their heads and then lower them, and I thought like maybe when they lift their heads they're like listening or they're sniffing or something. I don't know, but I couldn't really make it work that way, so I don't know if that's really true, but
and then there's also character enemy involvement in stealth too, where they'll fall asleep.
Yes.
And then you have like your moment. And did anybody ever have anybody wake up on them?
I was good enough that didn't happen.
Yeah, they wake up sometimes automatically after a few seconds, right?
Well, they'll say like I overslept or something.
Yeah, I feel asleep.
Yeah.
I feel asleep.
Yeah, I feel asleep, and then I overslept or something. But you have a generous amount of time. But I like those touches, and they don't happen right away, which helps too because you're not entirely sure.
Right.
I think early on in the first building, there's also another guard that will just be like, "Okay, my shift's up," and then they walk away, and it's like it takes about 5 to 10 seconds for that to happen. So you almost like you have to wait out some certain situations because if you're just like, oh well, I have to fight this guy, you might get into a heap of trouble.
You have to do some recon. It's not just a run and gun game, even though you could treat it that way if you have enough ammo.
Right. And speaking of like when you get caught and stuff, because that's definitely a stealth element too. That kind of progresses throughout the game. What it means to like get caught. I don't know how you guys felt about that. After like a while, there's a point where like they'll just keep coming.
Well, that's another like problem with this game is that, and again, comparing it to the MSX version, it was always supposed to be global alert if you were spotted, and if you moved to the next screen, you were still getting chased. Whereas, at least in the early parts of this game, all you have to do is walk off screen and you're reset.
Right. And actually that kind of encourages this weird, like, well, I don't really care if they spot me because I see my next exit point.
Defeats the purpose
and then
of the
I
game.
enter back in and know that I can shoot this guy. And shooting also doesn't, in this version, shooting doesn't alert anybody.
Yeah.
No, it does.
Even though it has a silencer. I mean, if you kill...
If you don't have the silencer, as soon as you fire, everybody looks at you and starts running towards you.
But what if there's only one guy?
Well, yeah, he will start looking at you, running towards you until he hits your bullet, which is moving slower than him.
I didn't always have that experience.
I had that every time until I got the silencer.
Yes, and I see what you're saying, but I guess what I mean is in the global system thing, when you shoot a gun and somebody registers it, now multiple people from different screens will be coming towards you.
Yeah.
In this one, there's no consequence. Even if you do get targeted by that guy, he's going to be dead when the bullet hits him.
That's
it's
true.
like,
it's more if there were, for me, it was more if there were like, if there's 5 people on your screen already, it'll alert everyone who's already on your screen. I don't know if it called more people in or not, but
the stealth right now is at like 50%. It's an element that you could appreciate. But I mean, like, if flip flops on like being good at certain aspects and then like just not really pulling it off, and that kind of makes it a less stressful game overall, though, because you have these little cheats you can constantly do to get out of the situation.
It cuts away a lot of the tension you would normally feel in like a stealth game, and I think this has potential to have a lot of tension in it if it worked the way, Sean, that you just said about if it was
a global alert system,
alert.
Yeah.
And I feel like to sum it up for me, it feels like honestly like most of the elements in this game are like really well thought out and like could work really well, but it's like somebody took it and like it's like every aspect that's really cool is broken. Like everything's broken in some way that it doesn't work now. And that's how I feel about the stealth. It's like it is really cool, like you said, Mike, that you look at the direction they're facing and it actually has like, it works in that way, but then it's broken in all the ways that you can cheat it, or sometimes it can completely screw you over. That's just out of your control.
I'll have more ways that this game is broken as we go along.
Yes, I'm sure there's no shortage.
Yeah, maybe this next one will get you started. This next category, I titled it first Exploration, but I think it's more of just like sense of direction or thing to do, like your mission as it evolves. This game is not very kind to the person who just continues moving forward. You do have to do a lot of backtracking. You do have to know your place in the building. This one would help by drawing a map.
It would, but it also, in most cases, like there is a good sense of place. Like most of the screens do look different than each other. Like they all have the same palette, but the arrangement and the different elements that are in each screen are recognizable enough that you could create a map of this place in your head to some degree. So in the very beginning, like when you finally get through the stupid jungle sequence and into the first building, like you will probably have the first floor memorized once you see everything on the first floor. And it's a little harder as things go along and you're trying to find doors that were locked before. Like, that is where that really starts to help when you have a map and you can mark locked doors.
Right, especially because outside of the manual, there's very little clues about where or what to go next. You know, even in the beginning of this game, it's never implied that you should go inside the cars, and if you do, you have to go in from the back of the car to enter like the cargo part, whereas like most people would probably think, well, if I could go in these, it would be through the front door.
There is a line in the manual that says that there are things in the trucks.
Right, no, totally, and that's what I'm saying. You know, the game didn't miss that, and it is, a lot of stuff is actually covered in the manual in terms of like figuring out, you know, process of elimination on what to do next. I just think that with a game that had a transceiver, you know, that like the fact that it doesn't help you kind of figure out what you have to do next. I mean, you can go all the way to the first gas chamber, right? Yeah. Without your gas mask. And only in that room,
I forgot
as you're like dying, as you're dying, he finally says like, "Hey, you know, I should have mentioned this, but you should go get a gas mask." But now it's like it's up to you now to figure out like, well, I never saw that thing. Where the heck is that?
Okay, so the other things that happen in this game, like, it does tell you. It's hidden. So when you're walking around and, like, your secondary objective is to rescue hostages, aside from, like, the main hostage, like Gray Fox. And when you talk to them, like, sometimes they'll just say, like, "Oh, what a relief. I'm so glad I get to leave now." But others will say, "What a relief. I'm so glad I get to leave now. Also, did you know that there's a gas mask in this floor on this side of the place?" And like just really random things. And there are other times where it's like, "You should talk to Schneider." And Schneider's on this channel. And so you do end up fiddling around with the transceiver and you end up finding Schneider and he's like, "This is where this stuff is." So, I mean, like, it's all there.
Yeah, I would say, like, granted, it wasn't perfect in the way that it, like, guides you and directs you into where you gotta go, but I kind of felt this little, like, satisfaction of exploring and kind of piecing it together, like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna need this now because there's the gas here or whatever it is. You know, like, piecing it together and being like, oh, where was that door? Now I got this card key, I go back in there, I find something, like, oh, this will help me get through the, I don't know, the area where you got to blow up the electrical floor, and, you know, everything kind of comes together in an organic-ish way.
Yeah, I'm not trying to compare this to, like, Metroid levels of, like, where the heck am I? And then I go all this way for nothing, right? It's not like that. Yeah. I think what's weird here, though, is that if, and this isn't even true on the MSX version, but if enemies, like, perma-died, right? Like, when you took care of them, it might make exploration a little more, like it might make it more enjoyable, because sometimes, especially on this NES version, when you backtrack, you go through doors where guards are standing on that door.
Yeah. One of the biggest technical issues with this game is that if it was on a timer, maybe, if it was like every 40 seconds to a minute,
or even every like 5 rooms or something.
But in this game, if you just open your menu, if you go to the transceiver, if you go and change your weapon, everything in that room that you're in respawns, and it just breaks the entire experience, because now you have to expend health, now you have to expend ammunition, now you have to run like a chicken. Like, it really breaks whatever immersion that they've created through this stealth system. And I don't think that was also present in the MSX system?
In the MSX version, when you go back to it doesn't do the reset thing when you go to menus and stuff, but when you go back, even to the stage you were just at, it has it has them there. And that's the same thing that's true of the global alert system, is like, the enemies that pour into the screen from other areas that they can enter from, they're not the enemies from the other screen. Yeah. It's not actually tracking the whole building. That would be quite a feat.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with, like, the timer thing, you know, because it makes sense that, like, they would have more guards that would be able to
eventually,
check this out. But then also at the same time, wouldn't they be like, hey, a bunch of dead bodies over here, maybe we should start like looking for a guy.
And then you start having to make Metal Gear Solid out of it. But.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the sequences that you have to go to, like, we were going back to the gas mask thing.
Mm-hmm.
you have like it's just the entire inventory system. Like the controls are all weird on each step. Then you have to be carrying the card key. That has to be your primary item whenever you're going into a door that needs a card key.
Yeah, you have to select. You have to go in and select the specific card key out of like 17 of them. So you gotta like guess. No, aren't there more than that?
There's 8 or 9.
There's 8. Yeah.
And then you have to immediately in this gas-filled room, you're taking damage. Like from the first frame, and then you have to change into your gas mask, and then you have to walk to the other door and take out your card key again, and now you're immediately taking damage again. And like maybe if they just had this is a nitpick to an extent, but maybe if they had a separate slot for the card key,
yeah.
Or if you really just like if your card key was just something that you didn't have to select, and once you got like here's the really annoying part about the card key system for me. Was once you get card key number 2, right? Now all of a sudden you have more than one card key to manage. The card key number 2 doesn't have like level 2 access to like
open
1 and 2.
Right.
If you go to a door now and you have, let's say, key cards 1 through 8, and for some reason, I really don't think this can happen. I think once you get to like key card 8, you really only have to worry about 7 and 8. Yeah. But let's just say for the record,
but
like
even
what if
1
you had to
through
go
4 is annoying.
Right. But yeah, exactly. If you had to like try to guess, like which door is it this time? Is it level 5? Like you have to select through, select equipment, select the key card. It's a lot of menuing for nothing.
I think that people that might defend this system would say that like if you're just going to simplify it down to an upgraded key card, then that removes some like puzzle elements or challenge, but
you
like
still
no,
had to find the key
it's
card.
really
challenge.
It's really just adding busy work in your inventory system.
Like it should just be you have the key card, you now have access to all these doors. You don't have to select anything. You have the next key card, all right, you have access to all these too. Like it shouldn't even be a selectable
But
item.
again, this is also like a new not a new idea, but it's an iteration on boss keys, and so I can kind of like from the time that this was made, I can forgive this mistake because but it's still very annoying.
Yeah, I mean they could have went even more aggressive on this if you think about it. You might have had to actually like go to the menu to reload.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like
true.
thankfully it's like when you get your ammunition, you can exit the room, go back, and it's still there, and just stock up as much as you want.
But that's also a problem. Like if you pick, like other problems with this whole inventory system crop up that are bugs. Like if you pick up ammunition before you pick up the gun, that ammunition goes nowhere.
That happened to me. I was so mad, and then I was like, "Where was that ammo again?"
Exactly.
I don't remember.
Pick up more ammo now.
Yeah.
And then if you're in a room that has an item like rations or ammo, all you have to do is go into the menu and come out, and there's the ammo. Like,
right, you don't even have to leave the room.
Every time you find ammo, you can very easily just max out your ammo. Which is, I mean, of course I did that every time also, but it is kind of sad because I feel like with, you get 20, you find ammo with how scarcely you do find it, and you get, 20 rounds?
Yeah.
Then it is kind of this ammo management kind of level of the game that we're kind of missing out on because you don't really have to do that because it's really easy to just get as much ammo as
I don't know if it's like a RAM issue or but a lot of things could have been vastly improved if this game had a longer memory. Yeah. Like it just like remembered enemies dying, remembered I don't know.
Yeah, because it's all exploitations that are too easy to ignore. Right.
Yeah.
And like you almost at that point you could do some of these things on accident.
Yeah.
You could be like, oh well, my health is low, so I'm gonna eat the rations right now, and then you exit out of the menu, and it's there in front of you.
That's
and you're
exactly,
like, hey, that's exactly
that's
what I need.
How I discovered it. Yeah.
Right.
And that's what happened to me too. And before I knew about that, I don't know why I'm hung up on this, but I did think it was really cool when I was playing that. Like every time I would fire the gun, I would think about it. I'd be like, wow, do I really want to waste this bullet? Like it had some weight to it. And then afterwards, I was like, I guess if I get caught, I can just shoot everyone. Like,
right. And we'll get to combat. But the next thing I wanted to talk about was finding the agents.
Okay.
And the reason specifically, if I can make a topic starter here, it's because this could have been an added element of the game that could have been a lot cooler if they didn't feel like such a natural progression part of the game. They're only hidden behind door key cards that if you're playing this game correctly, you're checking everything anyway.
Yeah.
You don't know when the next like important item is going to be like, the next weapon you find is going to be behind one of those doors. So you're checking for everything. I almost wish that the agents required like some kind of not puzzle solving, because I understand that would be very hard to do in this overhead aspect, but some kind of like extra additional searching. I liken it to, in the first building, there's that rolling log.
Yeah.
Right? And you go to one side, you got to get the plastic explosives, then you go down again, and then you let the rolling log come by, and then you exit out the other way. Little things like that, or the pitfalls, having things like that make it perilous to get to the agent would have been more rewarding than just, well, I'm going to see what's behind this door because I have to check every single thing. Oh, it's an agent. Great.
I think then you would
free them.
You would need to also. I know that you get like a class upgrade for every 5 agents you get.
Yeah, I
or
don't
something?
know. I don't know how it happens per agents, but that class thing is important.
Yeah, but I think you would also need more of because you can go through this game without getting most of them, if you so chose to. I think you might need a little bit more of a carrot to if you're going to add extra challenge to get to these guys. I think you need more of a reward for getting to them.
Well, I think the rank is actually really important though, because if you're like rank 4, you can hold so much more ammunition. You have double the health bar than what you start with at rank 1. I think
all right, I'll concede that.
That's actually a really good incentive, because that like makes you feel stronger as a player.
All right, I can see that.
Things. Yeah. It reminds me of in Legend of Zelda how like you can beat Ganon with whatever you have at your disposal, right? You really only need the sword. You just have to get to the room. But no one's stopping you from picking up the white tunic, or the it's not the master sword in that game, but the more powerful sword. Like, you can get those things, and when you get them, you feel better as a player. It's the same thing with the agents. The thing I don't like about the agents is that there's not really like a discovery system to them. Yeah. They're just there, and so it feels natural that you're going to progress with them. It almost feels like it's just punishing people who don't check every door.
True.
But I feel like in this game,
and they do also give you like a bit of information.
Right. In this game, as a stealth game, it's almost like you want them to check everything. Like you want to encourage that kind of behavior. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Joe, any thoughts on that?
I agree.
Okay.
Nothing new.
All right. So now let's talk about the combat of the game. And this includes all the weapons. So if anybody wants to talk about some cool weapons or anything, I'm totally down to talk about those things as well. But just, now that you have just your fist to start, how do you feel with just your fist?
I feel vulnerable with just my fist, especially around the dogs. But thankfully, as soon as you get into the building, if you check another truck, you're going to find the gun, and you're going to find some ammo, and then you just feel a lot more comfortable.
And I feel like it does a good job of, because if you sneak up on someone and use your fists, you win. Like, it's really hard to lose if you get the first hit in. Mm-hmm. But then if you get caught and a couple people come over to you, you might be in some trouble, which is a good way of kind of right off the bat rewarding stealth. And like, no one had really played stealth games before, I assume, back then. So it was like kind of a good way of like kind of showing people right away, like, this, you want to stay hidden in this game, rather than just do what you probably do in most other games you played at that point, which is just go all in.
Yeah, having the gun alert, I think is a better design decision. We got into the ammo thing already of like, when you don't have a lot of ammo, it is a tense situation, but not, I actually appreciate that they made it that it's one shot kills anybody for the most part, other than the guys later on who have like, they look like they have body armor on or something. Yeah. So that makes sense. But I like that they have the one hit kill thing, but at the same time, when you're being like rushed by 5 or 6 guys,
pew, pew, pew.
And you just, and they go in a single file, and you just shoot them down the line. It's like, maybe that's how it would happen in real life. Right. But I have to imagine that a terrorist organization would be a little more tactical.
Maybe they wouldn't be just running at you. They'd be using their guns.
Right, exactly.
They do, sometimes.
Sometimes they use their guns. In fact, there's one guy early on in the jungle.
Yeah, he's very trigger happy.
Yeah, when you go into the van to get the
right there,
the first key card, he automatically spots you. It's like the immediate. I don't know what they were trying to teach you there, but you have to like just get up very close to him and punch him, and knock him out. And I don't know about you guys, but like on replay throughs of this, sometimes I just would like fuck up the first couple of punches, and then he would like just get out of my way, start shooting at me. Then I'd go run towards him. He'd move in a different place. I was like, who is this guy? He should be in charge.
He's the boss.
Right. He should be in charge of this organization. He knows what's good. So you get the handgun, you have the silencer. You got a couple more thoughts?
I got a thought on what you said about them running at you single file and being too kind of easy to take out once you get caught, which again harkens back to the global alert system, where that would at least, even though everyone's easy to take out, there's a consequence to the fact that you're using your gun and you're making a commotion. That would, I think, be the like remedy there. But
I don't think I think the fact that we keep coming back to this isn't just that we have the foreknowledge of these games end up having global alert.
Right.
It's that even if I were playing this for the first time in 1987 or 1988, I would expect the people 20 meters away to also hear this.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean I think it's deserved criticism to keep bringing it up.
So we also have the plastic explosives and the landmines. Not entirely like...
I didn't use them very often.
Yeah, not entirely useful. I think the landmines are good in certain routes for the enemies. Like if you see a guy who's walking around in like a square or something and you don't want to try to just like sneak around him, you can leave a landmine in
also
the path
like
that
a
you
couple
know.
boss fights.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there were a few times where I was being chased and I would drop them, and at first I was like, this is great. I'm being able to kill these people without having to turn around and fight them, and then I can get off the screen. Then I realized, like, oh, but I could just get off the screen.
Just get off the screen.
Which brings me back to the global alert system that you're going to bring up after every point that I make.
Yeah. But the plastic explosives, they do come into use at the very end of the game against the supercomputer. You have to you have to plant 16 of them against the supercomputer, and it's just like...
I think you can also just use the rocket launcher, though.
I wonder. But maybe you would need like a lot more rockets.
Yeah. I mean, but again, it's ammunition that just
that you replenish. Yeah. For some reason, I remember like I think someone in the game tells you about the 16 thing.
I don't recall that.
Yeah. But also, if you don't want to do that, I thought you were going to hint to the other thing. That is, if you enter the room with the supercomputer at the end of the game, and you immediately, as you're up against the door, just hit the right button on the D-pad, you'll get warped to the final boss. It's just a mistake in the game. That'll just take you right to the final boss, and you won't have to worry about the supercomputer or escaping the room or anything like that. You're totally fine. You go right to the final boss. So if you don't have 16 explosives on you, maybe try the right button.
Because you may defeat the final boss, but the supercomputer is still at large.
That's true.
So,
and the supercomputer...
So you didn't really beat the game.
But does the supercomputer have Wi-Fi?
No.
Okay, then I don't think it was much of a problem.
Yeah, it's just contained, pure evil or whatever.
He's just seething.
Right. And then, this one was cool. The remote-guided missiles.
Yeah.
That was unexpected, right?
Yeah, I did not expect that
I remember that, again, from Metal Gear Solid.
I just think it's funny that, in a game like this, you can launch something and then take control of that missile. It's weird, like seeing the character that you've been controlling throughout the game, all of a sudden, now you're in charge of this missile. It would be like if in Super Mario Brothers, you just all of a sudden shoot the fireball, and it's like now you have control over the fireball.
Exactly. Or like if you're in like Super Smash Brothers and you shoot like a rocket and you can control it there.
Oh, gotcha.
But
I
you
see where
can
you're
do
going
that,
with
right?
Oh, you're right.
And you only has Solid Snake, though.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, you're right.
No. You can do it as Samus too.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was trying to go with those.
Depends on the type of missile you shoot, though. She has one that's the super missile that you can't control, and then the missile, by the regular missile that you can control. Yeah,
exactly.
Missiles. But this one was actually used in a cool place early on in the game. The remote guided missile.
Oh, to turn the switch off.
Yeah, you have to like shoot the circuit breaker, and then it turns off the what I'm gonna guess is like the electric voltage floor.
Yeah.
Which is just like, is nobody else walking there?
Right. Well,
Does nobody go through that section?
Well, they're not patrolling there.
It's funny though. Do like military bases have like little traps like that, like electrified floors and stuff?
Military organizations, no. Terrorist organizations, yes. Totally.
I did also appreciate like the just cute little scripting things of like if you walk into one of these areas that has an electrified floor and there's another like guard there, he won't try to attack you. He will run to the switch to electrocute you that way. I'm like, a lot of the AI in this game is trash, but stuff like that, adds a little bit of flavor.
Yeah. And it's clearly just programmed to do just that. But hey, it is something.
Yeah.
Then you also have the grenade launcher and the submachine gun, but both of those are just kind of like increased firepower to take on the heavier enemies of the game.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You definitely need stuff like that. I think it would be kind of immersion breaking if I'm shooting a handgun at is there a helicopter in this one? Or
that's the original version.
Okay,
you have twin gunner or double gunner.
Gotcha.
Just two guys on turrets.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So at least there's some reason to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rocket launcher, which you'll definitely need because it's the only way to take down the final boss of the game, Big Boss himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that a twist?
That is a twist.
Yeah.
It surprised me.
So this is something that I've been wanting to get into, and while this is still, again, very basic, I really appreciate how complex this world is. Like, in most of the games that we've played so far, you have this very basic, you have this very, very basic reason to be playing this game, whether it's digging up blocks and burying people, or shooting or throwing fireballs at little Goombas. Whereas in this one, like, the transceiver tells a story, and later in the game, not only does it break the fourth wall and try and get you to and try to throw you off the tail that way, but there is a twist ending with this whole. I'm sorry for the spoilers. This whole your superior big boss is the enemy, and it's really basic by today's standards, but like that, this is the biggest story we've played so far.
And I feel like, I can't speak for you guys, but I feel like even in today, knowing today's standards, this shocked me because thinking of it as an NES game, I did not expect there to be a plot twist that was that unsuspected.
This is the biggest twist on this show since Double Dragon. Joe, you weren't here for that episode, but at the end of the arcade version, not the NES version, when you're playing co-op, after you defeat Willy, you have to fight each other for who gets the rights to the girl.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. We actually had a listener write into the show last week, Diego. He was talking about Double Dragon and his memories with it, and he brought up this funny one that I know has nothing to do with Metal Gear, but we're going to talk about it real fast because it made me laugh. He said, at the end of Double Dragon for Master System, you have to fight each other to decide who keeps the girl, or something like that. My brother suggested we both jump at the pit, so both die to see what happens. He said on 3, we both jump, but only I jumped. And I think that's so funny that he has like that memory forever now.
But I want to know what happens still.
If they both jump at the same time.
Don't fall for it. If you're ever playing Double Dragon with Sean, don't fall for it.
If you ever find yourself at an arcade with Sean.
Going back to Metal Gear, though, because I say that the story is a bit more complex than what we've played. But I guess technically Rambo tells the story.
I was just thinking about Rambo when you were mentioning it.
But when I think about the storytelling of Rambo the game, it's more like a toddler, like vaguely recalling the movie that his dad was watching, and it's like, and then he just talks to the stranger at the dock,
and then there was a snake everywhere.
You do a good toddler.
And now this game is actually telling a mostly coherent story with a little bit of poor translation thrown in.
Yeah, just bad English is the problem, that's all. But you understand at least what they're getting at, you know? I feel asleep is fine. So thank you for that, Sean. I'm not going to fight you on the story part here. I thought it was pretty immersive. I think it is weird that Big Boss can only be defeated by a rocket launcher. That just seems strange.
Well, he's big.
Yeah,
and he's the boss.
How big is he?
Pretty boss.
But it's just like, I don't know. I'm not saying give him the handgun, but if I have the grenade launcher, it should work the same, right? But only the rocket launcher will do damage to Big Boss. And the select glitch is in total effect here. So if you want, you can always just select him back to reset in his place.
All of the bosses can be menued back to their original spot.
And,
I didn't know that. Do they gain their health back, or? Like...
I mean, I don't really. in all the mini bosses, I didn't even fight them. I just walked around them. So I can't go into that detail.
Yeah, I think I can't speak for whether he does that or not, but you don't even need to know if it resets the health or not, because actually there's an even bigger exploit that was, whether or not it was programmed in the game is anybody's guess. But if you just go to the top right corner, Big Boss will just stay in the lower left, lower right corner, and he'll just stand there right at you, so you can just aim the rockets right at him. It's unbelievable, but it happens every time without fail, and it's used in speed runs and everything.
Yeah.
It's just known. It's like, yep, that Big Boss, he's really good until you put him in a corner. All right, that's mostly what I had to say in terms of topics. Oh, the low health at the start of the game. It made you appreciate it when you got more health, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I actually liked the idea of, it was very similar to in Legend of Zelda when you get more hearts and everything. You feel like a stronger player. So I did notice that I was dying a lot early on, but in the later half of the game, unless you're being careless, you can think about your situations and plan things out. And I appreciated being able to do that in a game. As opposed to in most NES games that we have, you have to always be on, or at least, the best you can do is just pause and try to think about what might come next. In this game, you can actually check your screen or use the binoculars, which I would never recommend.
If you're in a place that has enemies in it originally.
Yeah, you can use the binoculars, see what's ahead of you. It feels like there's like maybe a very small baseline of strategy added to this game that feels good.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. The passcode system.
Okay.
It's long.
It's very long.
There's a lot of things going on.
I mean, I guess it is saving a good amount of information.
Yes.
Right, especially with all the items and everything you have.
Yeah. And the ammo for each, or the amount of each item they have. Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. Mm-hmm. I'm not really, it's not really going to be a make or break for me if the passwords are long, though.
Yeah, and obviously they weren't going to put like save slots into it because Konami was not going to pay for the batteries to do that. So I'm fine with the password system as it is.
Apparently there were some fun passwords you could put in there, though.
Yeah, are you talking about the F me one?
Yes.
Yeah, if you put in FUCK me and then fill the remaining spaces with 1, like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. When you finish the last one, it will just automatically transport the player to the final battle, but with no equipment. Truly telling you to go F yourself.
That's crazy, actually, that somebody planned that and put that into this game.
It's very cute.
I love that. There's also some other things you can do, though, too, with the Metal Gear password system to get, like, if you put, like, Diane in, or there's a couple of other names that if you put in, I wonder, like, what those...
I mean, they're probably like sort of cheat code sort of things.
Yeah, it's just cool. It's like, it reminds me of the Metroid one with Bailey, whatever, Justin Bailey. And you put his name in, and then you can play as Samus without her clothes on. In her swimsuit.
The Zero, okay.
Yeah. Not Zero Suit, that didn't exist yet. That was in Zero Mission, hence Zero
Whatever.
Suit.
I don't care.
All right, hey, I think you do care. Actually, I think you're pretty into Samus. I was like, do I say that on the podcast? I do. The NES version of Metal Gear sold over 1 million copies. That's a huge success.
Yeah.
But I need to talk to you guys about the MSX version because I did play it.
I would love to talk about it.
Oh, you did play it?
I didn't. That's why I want to talk about it, because I watched some videos on it, and I really want to play it.
It is a much better game.
It looks like it.
It is so good.
It seems like it's everything I like about this game without all the things I don't like about this game.
There are better story beats if that's what you're looking for. There's better stealth mechanics if that's what you're looking for.
Yep. There's
better graphics.
Yeah, better graphics too, and also like better sound. There's the music is throughout the well, is the music in this one throughout the entire game? I actually can't remember now.
Yeah, there's music pretty much throughout.
Yeah.
It's the same 2 tracks for most of the game.
That's fine. It's the same thing there, too.
Yeah.
You don't start in the jungle, though. The jungle was just a made-up thing on the NES version. Because you know what else was weird about that jungle in the NES version? You parachute after 3 other guys parachute, and we never hear from them again.
They all got caught in a tree.
They were unrelated. They were not part of your mission. They were just parachuting in there for other reasons.
Yeah. In South Africa.
They were skydiving. Yeah,
I'm going with Sean's idea. They landed in the trees, and it's up to Rambo to go find them. All right, that's somebody else's problem. Yes, I played through the MSX version. It is the mapping. The map system is also a little different. It's not the same exact one for one as the NES.
There's
a
maze.
Yeah. Yeah, the NES took some liberties on how to redesign the game, and interestingly enough, Kojima had no say.
Yeah,
in the NES version
he wasn't involved at all in the NES version.
He's completely disowned this version of the game.
I was reading about that.
Which I would expect out of somebody as protective of their work as Kojima,
right?
But also because it's such an inferior version,
right? Mm-hmm. He says the port was developed by another Konami division at Tokyo, which was given the source code from the MSX2 version without the consent of me or the original team. Masahiro Ueno, who worked as a programmer for the NES version, also stated that the staff who worked on the port were given a 3-month deadline to port the game to the NES and Famicom, and were ordered to make the port as different as possible by Konami executives. Why?
Yeah.
I don't know, but this is a thing that is kind of common in this era. Like, if you play like Shadowrun on the Super NES, it's a completely different game than Shadowrun on the Genesis. Like
I think that even went into like the PlayStation and even like PS2 eras. I remember there being like some games that were like maybe not. Maybe it's different because maybe not on like their counterpart console. But I remember like the game on the Wii is a totally different game.
Oh yeah,
because it had to.
You know what? Actually, that totally answers the question. You're absolutely right, Sean. Because I mean that also happened with like the Aladdin game on Super Nintendo Genesis. But I was thinking of this strictly as a stupid American, and I was like, why would they want the MSX version to be different than the NES version? But the Famicom also exists, so clearly they would want people to double dip.
Exactly.
Well, I own it for the MSX too, but now this Famicom one looks totally new. You know?
I want to play the one where nothing works.
Right. Mommy, I want it on both systems. Like, like we already own that game.
Yeah, we have Metal Gear at home. Metal Gear at home.
Yeah, that's true.
Old memes brought to you by Sean and the boys.
The MSX version is playable though without the need to get an MSX. I don't own one for the record. All you need to do is have Metal Gear Solid 3.
It's on subsistence. I also think it's included with the HD collection.
It is included with the HD collection as well.
As like a downloadable, and I think it's also on Wii as like a virtual console thing.
Get out. That's awesome. I think the MSX got some games on the Wii. That's cool. I mean, the Wii virtual console. Yeah. Whenever it was update day.
Day, yeah.
That's what I want to say, but I'm not entirely sure.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that it's included in some regard and that this NES port is just ignored completely because as good as I felt about the NES game, the more I played it, once I played the MSX version, I felt like I have a legal responsibility to tell everyone who's listening to this podcast that if they can, they absolutely must play the MSX version. Not even if you're just a fan of Metal Gear, but just to see how this game should be done.
Yeah.
Everything we've complained about in this episode is mostly fixed with the exception of like, you're having to swap through the card keys.
Yeah.
And look, it's never going to be your favorite Metal Gear game. It's no one's favorite Metal Gear game. They're lying to you if they say that.
It's always your vengeance.
Yeah. What about, is that the Rising one? Metal Gear Rising?
Oh, I don't know.
With Raiden?
Yeah. I think that's it, yeah.
People love that game. People love that game. That's Platinum Games, right?
I think so.
So people love Platinum Games.
I know.
So there's a whole fan base right there. So definitely put the MSX version.
It's Metal Gear Survive, I'm sorry.
Metal Gear Survive. Metal Gear the VR missions.
No, VR missions is great.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
I haven't even heard of half of these.
What about Metal Gear Acid?
I never got to play it. I never had a PSP.
You guys are just saying like Metal Gear and then like a noun and then
That's basically how Kojima names things.
Metal Gear Survive, though, that's the one without Kojima, right?
That is
was
without
like the
Kojima.
MMO?
It's basically, I thought it was like
With zombies or something?
I think it's either like a Rust-like game or a Battle Royale. I don't remember.
Now, is it weird that in this NES version of Metal Gear, there is no Metal Gear?
That is, I'm surprised it took us this long to even mention that.
yeah.
I don't know why you would even bother making the game if you weren't going to figure out a way to put at least the sprites.
Yeah, I mean, how hard is it? Even if it doesn't operate the way it did in the MSX
just
version,
have it stand
show
still.
it. Have a photo of it, like just anything.
It's on the box.
But that was something I read in an interview. You might know more about it than me, Mike. But an interview with Kojima where he just said like that just shows something along the lines of like that just shows how little respect these people have for the players. Like
right. Yeah,
they're not even putting the thing that's the name of the game in the game.
Exactly.
And then there's this other game, Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, and I always thought that this was a remake of Metal Gear.
No, it's Metal Gear Solid.
It's a remake of Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I even know about this game is because I owned it and then sold it, and now it's worth a lot of money.
Really?
Yeah, I made a big mistake, but I really wanted Fallout 3.
You know what? I think that was okay at the time. I know you don't, but
no, I'm fine with it. I'm again, that was my only chance to get into the Metal Gear Solid series, and I haven't.
Yeah, I've never played that version.
Got it. Yeah, I don't know anything else to say about Metal Gear. I will get into the sequels and spin-off section, but we've been doing that.
Yeah, we've been doing that.
Just
everything is a one-off.
But yeah. I'm not going to list all the other ones. We don't have to. Though it would be fun, maybe in the post show if you guys stick around. Sean will explain to us some Metal Gear stuff. There was a World of Power book. Remember, we talked about this for some other NES games. World of Power Metal Gear, which was the scholastic version of the Metal Gear story that kids could buy. At their book fair.
They airbrushed out the gun and stuff.
Yes, it airbrushed out the gun. I got a little bit about the plot here. Big Boss is not featured in the book, but instead, two different characters, Commander South and Colonel Vermin Katafi, serve as Solid Snake's commanding officer and Outer Heaven's leader, respectively. The book also gives Solid Snake the identity of Justin Haley.
Which is weird.
Right. So close to Justin Bailey, too. This is strange. And changes the name of his organization from FOX-HOUND to the Snake Men.
I love it.
The Snake Men.
I kind of wish that they would give a nod and a wink to that in some future game, but I know that's not going to happen.
and as mentioned, this version, the NES version of Metal Gear sold gangbusters, 1 million plus copies, is great for video games back then. So Konami was like, well, we gotta make another one. So we will be playing Metal Gear Snake's Revenge.
Which is Apocrypha. It is only a sequel to the NES version. It is not in the main storyline.
Yes, and it made Kojima so mad that it existed that he went on to make Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake for the MSX, which is official canon.
Yeah, it's the official sequel.
Yeah. And where does that fall in the timeline of things?
I think it takes place very shortly after the first game. I don't know the actual plot.
Got it.
Never played it.
But this Metal Gear game, it takes place. Is it the first one?
Metal Gear?
Yeah.
Metal Gear takes place midway through the actual timeline of this entire series.
Whoa.
Snake Eater is the first game.
Snake Eater's the first game?
Yeah.
Chronologically.
Not Phantom Pain?
Chronologically. No, Phantom Pain. No, yeah, Phantom Pain is later.
Okay.
It's still, yeah.
I'm just making up shit as I go along. All I have to do is assume that 4 is the end, because he's ancient in that game.
I think 4 is the chronological end to the Solid Snake saga.
Got it.
I think that the Revengeance, whatever.
Right, because then there's Liquid Snake, right? I think I know these things, but I don't. I have no idea.
All these things you're saying ring a bell to me.
These are
I've heard all these
buzzwords
words before. Yeah.
Liquid Snake is the equivalent of a dad hearing TLDR. They have no idea what it means, but they're like, oh yeah, I've heard that. My kid says that TLDR. I'm like, Liquid Snake. Sean's like, shut up. You don't know shit about these games, play Final Fantasy VII first.
Exactly.
All right. I think that's good. Any other straight thoughts?
Pause sound. Yes.
Yes. Here we go.
Not that interesting of a pause sound, but I do think we will find out eventually. I recognize this pause sound, and I think it's one that we hear in a lot of games, and I think it's in my memory from Blades of Steel.
Okay.
Sorry that's the least interesting thing that we've ever said. But
No, it's not. I love that.
On the same talking about sounds, the codec sound pretty much is what it was throughout the entire series, and that brought me nostalgia. A lot of the weird elements in these games, sort of surprised me that they've sort of stood the test of time, like the codec sound, there being a fourth wall breaking conversation at some point in the game, just the ridiculous naming conventions of the bosses. So I think that if you just take it as the inferior version of the original game, there is still a lot to like in the nostalgia factor here.
Yeah, and when you're talking about that sound, you're talking about the like when you get caught. Also, because there's also the sound when you get spotted.
Yeah,
which that's in later games, right?
Yeah, and it's even more authentic in the MSX version. It sounds even closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have to again just say like, oh, there it is. The breaking the fourth wall thing. Can you talk about that? Because I don't exactly remember. I can't remember.
So
because I remember at the end of the game.
Later in the game, you will end up being contacted by Big Boss saying, go here, and then it's a trap. Or like, go here, and it's a trap, because he realizes you're getting closer, and he didn't expect you to get this far. And then at one point, he will call you and say to turn the game off. The mission is accomplished.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
That's really funny. Yeah, I pretty much stopped picking up the phone, honestly, when it says call, because
in the beginning it's just like, hey, by the way, you're supposed to be infiltrating.
Yeah, that was like, your mission is to infiltrate. Don't get caught.
Yeah, and even when Big Boss explains his whole thing at the end, like his big plan about I wanted you to do some of the work, but you got too far, right?
You're like, too good.
Right.
Yeah, you couldn't have distracted him with something that wasn't leading him to like the goal.
But at the end of the game too, as it's telling you on the transceiver everything that's happening, it does kind of say like, this is your computer speaking. Yeah. Like, we want you to know the people that made this game, and then goes off to list them. Like,
it's the credits.
Yeah. Always good stuff. That's another thing that like I vaguely know about in Metal Gear breaking the fourth wall stuff. Psycho Mantis, like I know that he reads your memory card. I have no idea what he does. Yeah. Let's do the essential games list. I mean, so we've been talking about this game at length. I feel like at some point in the last 5 minutes, you actually did your essential games list, like speech,
accidentally.
Would you like to give it to us?
I'll say that, like, while this has a lot of nostalgia factor, and it was fun because I hadn't actually played this game fully before this episode. It was sort of my excuse to finally do it. It was a cool exercise in exploring the lore of a franchise that I like but don't entirely understand, and like the lore of the game itself and the stories surrounding the franchise. But like, since there's like, as this game exists, there is a superior version that like wasn't really available in the States, but it still did exist. I can't put this game on the essential games list. It's so broken. Like, I can't put a broken game on the essential games list. So I imagine you guys are gonna feel similarly. But that's my vote. That's my vote.
All right, and that's one down. Joe?
So I said at the beginning that when I started playing it, I immediately thought I was going to hate it just because of the way it played. I surprisingly had a lot of fun with it. Like, I really enjoyed this game. It's really our first time, I feel like, having something so big, like feeling like you really are infiltrating this base, and you find all your clues as you go and everything.
Big but contained.
Yeah. I don't mean necessarily big as in like literally like a big map. I think
we've had big, I think.
Yeah. It's the size of Resident Evil.
But I mean, this feels like it's a pretty, I shouldn't say the biggest, but like, it's a pretty big experience. Like, I feel like going back to it, you're like, okay, where was I again? What information do I have? You know, if it's pretty immersive. Yes, the problem is that it's broken. And I keep having this like memory of when I was playing Skyrim. I was playing Skyrim on the PS3 when it first came out. I know, bear with me here. Okay. And there was a glitch that I didn't realize had been patched. And the glitch was that if you touch water, your game crashes. I still enjoyed playing Skyrim that way, but it was really, really annoying. Until I realized it was patched out and I fixed it. But that's kind of how I feel when I'm playing this. Like, wow, this is such a cool game, but nothing works. So that is the biggest reason why I as much as I want to, I also can't put it on the essential games list, but I can't speak to the MSX version, but I really want to play that, and I feel like maybe if I played that one could get on the essential games list.
The MSX essential games list.
Yes, when we get to that.
Right. Whenever, somehow. All right. Here's what I have to say about all this. Forget that there's another version. Forget like that this game is so well contained and tells a great story. The biggest problem I have with this game is that the flaws that are in this game, for me personally, it's fun despite all of these flaws, right? Yeah. It's so much fun to actually play this game, but every single time something happens that you don't want to happen, you like kind of laugh it off, and you're like, "Oh, this game would be a lot better if that didn't happen." Like, I'll keep playing, I'll keep playing, but man, I wish that didn't happen just now. And you just keep going and going, and then eventually you might die and get like reset back to a point that's just a little too far for you for that day. So you just write down the password or whatever and kid to yourself that you're gonna go back. I'm not speaking from personal experience here, but. That's how I felt about this game overall. So it can't go onto the essential games list for me, but I do have to call out that like it's fun. It especially like I feel like this game is more interesting now than it was maybe when it first came out. Like it was maybe too obtuse back then.
It's so innovative and it's so it's aspiring to be something so much bigger than we've seen recently that you have to give it credit.
Right. What is it, like Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future when he's like, you guys might not like this, but your kids are going to love it. It's like, that's how I feel about this. I feel like it could actually be appreciated more now, especially with everything we know about Kojima, like being able to like, imagine if you could go back to one of Spielberg's like earliest films that like you don't even know about and be like, oh wow, this was the inspiration for so much of his stuff. You can't because you'd watch Duel and be like, oh, that's weird. But like, imagine if you could. Like, that's really cool. And so I think that's kind of what we're getting here is like a glimpse of like Kojima thinking about video games in a way that not many people were thinking about at the time.
Yeah, and you can sort of see the little cogs of like how it all works and like, oh, this is what they were trying to accomplish by doing this little trick.
Right, because even the MSX version isn't flawless, but there's a cohesion between story, gameplay, and level design here that is more advanced than, say, something like Super Mario Brothers, which nails everything it does, but maybe, like after a while gets outdated of playing it a lot. Whereas in this one, as long as you're not beating the game, you're constantly exploring like new stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. It feels fresh as you go. So I appreciate it, but sorry, you're not making the essential games list. Maybe Snake's Revenge.
Maybe.
That is all the time we have for this episode of Nostalgia. Join us next time because it's been a while since we did a baseball game. It's been a wild 5 episodes, but we are going to do another baseball game. And it will be RBI Baseball. That stands for Runs Batted In.
I thought it was like really big integer.
Just wow. Maybe that's actually more compelling of a stat. I would like to know. Mark McGwire's really big integers. But also like RBI baseball. It's like why go off of runs batted in? Why not like home run baseball?
It was probably already taken.
Because that's too showboaty. All you need are RBIs.
I want OBPS baseball.
OPS.
Whatever.
Yeah. No, I guess like OPS is different than OBS. So yeah, you're fine. OPS is like the
it's because P
culmination
is a different
of
letter.
OBS plus like your average.
I thought it was on base plus.
Yeah.
Go,
We'll get off.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah. We'll get off this boat. Join us in the post show which is happening in like 2 minutes because Sean is going to tell us all of our dying Metal Gear questions.
Okay.
I'm Michael Esposito. You can find me on @EspositoFilm on Twitter, and I'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the post show.
Thank you
the
for
first
having
one
me.
where
I'm here too.
Joe's here. We are going to right now on the fly come up with questions about the Metal Gear saga, as
Okay.
I'm going to call it. Would you call it a saga? That's my first
Sure.
question.
It's okay.
All right, it's a saga. Great,
One
Joe.
question down.
We'll alternate.
Okay, my question: Who is Metal Gear Solid?
Okay, so it's not a person.
Okay, what is the Metal Gear?
Metal Gear is basically a walking tank that has the capability to launch nuclear warheads to any place on the globe from any position.
Should I have not said the Metal Gear? Do I sound like someone saying like the Google?
It's kind of like that, but it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so following up on that, why does he need to walk if he can launch them from anywhere?
Because there's also anti-personnel weapons that can be used with typical warfare.
Got it. Okay, so he's a walking nuke machine.
Yes.
Is it like sentient or have it like AI or is it controlled?
It is not sentient. It is controlled by a person.
Okay.
Is Metal Gear?
I think.
Is Metal Gear a like recurring villain?
Metal Gear, not a villain. It is a thing.
Okay.
That
Would you? It launches nuclear warheads.
but it's like is the like is the Death Star a villain or a place?
Yeah.
I understand. I understand now much better. I guess I was rolling off of Joe's sentient question and just not listening.
So there are new Metal Gears and proto Metal Gears in pretty much every game that I've played.
Got it. So, the Metal Gear Solid 3, right?
Yes.
Snake Eater.
Yes.
That one takes place in like the 70s.
Yes.
So that one, the game is easier because the technology is less.
The game is easier?
Yeah, like, the technology, if you're playing these games in the future for the most part, and then you go back to the 70s, the technology isn't as good, so the game must be easier, right? Like the enemies can't be as hard.
That checks out.
So Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, the big thing you're trying to destroy is like it's what Metal Gear was before it turned into a walking mech. It's basically it's just a big tank that goes really fast and then shoots an ICBM, and it's called the Shagohod. And it's not as sexy as a big walking tank, but it's still a thing. Yeah. That's what that is.
Great. Okay. Joe?
So this is a little bit of a vaguer question, but
Okay.
Knowing about Metal Gear Solid, what I hear about the most is like how convoluted and confusing the story is.
Yeah, it is entirely on the same level as like one of your Kingdom Hearts games.
That wasn't where my question was going, but it was in the back of my mind. What element makes it so confusing? Is it the clone thing, or is there something like is there time travel or something?
It's
like
the
what
same
is
shit.
it?
Like, spoiler.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
Yeah. Seriously,
Oh,
no
okay,
spoilers.
yeah,
We've been
without spoiling
things.
No, I just think it's funny.
Yeah,
I think it's funny to have to do this
Okay,
without
so
spoilers.
there-
without spoiling,
to
like, too
Joe's,
much,
to
like,
Joe's
is it,
question,
like-
it's like, is it time travel? What
Yeah,
is the
give
actual...
me the element of the story.
Not only is there this whole geopolitical mess that's going on, and it's a soap opera on that level, but there are also characters who are clones of other characters who have doubles that are different characters.
Sounds remarkably similar to Kingdom Hearts, but like not Disney.
Yeah, so it's almost self-parody.
Metal Gear, right?
Yeah.
Nuclear warhead thing, right? Japanese. Godzilla, also Japanese.
True.
formed from a nuclear warhead, right?
Yeah. Not in the same universe as Godzilla.
But not in the same universe. But if they fought, like, Godzilla versus King Kong's coming out, Godzilla versus Metal Gear, who's winning?
I guess it depends on which Metal Gear, because there's Metal Gear, there's Metal Gear Ray, there's Metal Gear Rex. I think that Metal Gear Ray would win.
Okay.
But it's really a like, whose turf are we on sort of thing.
Metal Gear Ray. Wow, that's pretty crazy. The image I just saw. Right. Yeah. Ray, not to be confused with Ray Skywalker, the definitive best character in the Star Wars universe, says Disney.
I thought it was. No spoilers for anything.
Yeah.
No spoilers for Metal Gear. Yeah. Okay. Another Metal Gear question for you here. Okay. The cardboard box thing, right?
True.
That's a reoccurring thing.
Very much so.
If you are in the box, right, in, like, let's just say any of the later Metal Gear Solid games, and you move while you're in the cardboard box, would that alert anybody, or you have, like, free roam while you're in that box?
So you would basically trigger a suspicious mode for the guard that you're near, where it'd be like, huh? What was that? And then he would very lackadaisically walk over to you and investigate, and then open the box, and then you'd hear the which would cause an actual alert, unless you were able to distract him in some other way.
Gotcha.
Okay. Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yes.
Did you play all of it?
I did.
Okay. Does he get younger in that game, or does he die? Don't tell me if he dies, but
don't answer the question.
Is it implied essentially that, like, this would be Snake's last adventure?
I will tell you that he does not get younger in that game.
Got it. Okay, so yeah.
Did you hate the character in Metal Gear Solid 2 that everyone, like, hated? That you play as?
Wasn't a big fan of
Raiden?
him. Yeah, it's Raiden. He's like, you've got, it's a question of taste and culture. Like, you've got the very alpha Snake, who is entirely just Russell. I'm sorry. What's his name?
Russell Crowe.
No.
Brad Pitt?
No. Okay.
Sylvester
Russell
Stallone.
Westbrook, the basketball player.
He's just Kurt Russell.
Oh, Kurt Russell.
He's basically just Kurt Russell from Escape from New York. That's what the character's based on.
Got it.
And then you've got this weeb shit with Raiden, and it can turn some people off.
Got it. Yeah, that checks out. Psycho Mantis, only in Metal Gear Solid?
I think that he makes another appearance.
Cool. Okay. Psycho Mantis in Smash.
I would love to see Psycho Mantis in Smash.
Just, like, reading off, like, other game stuff.
You like to play
people.
Fire Emblem.
Yeah. That's funny. Okay, I think I'm good on questions. Joe, anything for you?
I think I'm done. Other than what was any of that you just talked about? Who's Psycho Mantis?
Don't worry about that.
He's a guy in a gas mask.
Don't spoil it. Okay.
Also, now, Sean, it's your turn to ask me and Joe questions about Metal Gear.
Okay, so in your from the information that you have at this point, do you know what Groznygrad is?
I would say no.
Groznygrad, it's a holiday, right? That they have.
Would you say that if you were crawling in a very small cave, like you had to crawl through the cave, and you happened upon a crab with a knife, do you think you could win a fight with that crab? Like if you were in like a crab battle?
Is it a giant enemy crab?
No, it's just a crab, like normal size, but he's holding a knife.
He's holding a knife in its claw.
And its claw.
I think I could be a formidable opponent to the crab.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah.
I have another one here though. Do you know about Metal Gear Ghost Babel?
No,
Babel?
I don't.
Or whatever it might be. It's a Game Boy Color game for Metal Gear.
I had never heard of it.
Well, it's a thing.
I will also state for the record that I am not an expert on this series, and a lot of these games I have a very foggy memory of.
That's fine. I just think it's interesting because there's also apparently a Metal Gear in Snatcher.
The original,
Kojima,
one of his first
game
games
that he wrote.
That's weird.
That's on Sega CD. If you want to play it in North America, it's like an ally. Yeah, and it's mini. It's tiny. It's like a companion character.
That's cute.
I like that idea.
Never played Snatcher.
Gotta play Snatcher. Gotta play Police Knots. Haven't played that either.
Like Scribble Knots.
It's like Scribble Knots, but with the police. You can only fill in like you're under arrest.
I think it's just like a
that.
visual novel, isn't
Yeah,
it?
you actually just write in subpoenas. Yeah.
I think that's more of like a DA thing.
Yeah, that's probably true. It is like a visual novel, but there's definitely also like some gameplay to it.
Okay.
Yeah. Would recommend we all check that out. We should just do that as a playthrough.
Do it.
Kojima, you're the man. He's cool. He's a cool dude.
I wish that you got to make Silent Hills. I'm sorry if you're listening.